Welcome to the WoodsTalk podcast extra branch.
Hello, can you hear me?
I can indeed, mate. How are you?
I'm grand. How are you?
I'm good. Good to see, even though it's over fucking virtual reality here, but nice to see you.
Nice to see you too, Mugger.
I was trying to figure out, just before we started recording, when was the last time I'd have seen you? Because I don't know if I've seen you this year, pre-lockdown, would it?
I'm not sure. I can't remember.
Because obviously it feels like 3 years ago that lockdown even kicked in. You know what I mean?
Feels like your wedding.
Yeah. Dare I say it, but I've seen you since my wedding.
No, I think we did. I don't know.
Yeah. It's just, again, just no dates or times are viable anymore. Hey? I'll tell you what. Yeah. So what have you been up to? What was your lockdown situation work-wise, and how's the family? And just tell me your whole life story.
Oh, my life story's mad. You don't even want to hear it.
Oh, do you?
Prior to having having 2 kids was all right. And then
Yeah.
we had 3 kids, and we had 4 kids, and then life's just different.
Yeah.
And that was nothing to do with COVID-19. That was just to do with me not pulling out.
And you don't agree with that at all? Don't chat to Paddy about whipping it out.
Yeah, but no, it was mental. Pretty hard, to be honest.
Mm-hmm.
I think people don't realize how hard it actually can when you can't get out of the house. So
yeah,
just on a daily basis was just nuts with kids and babies and 2 wee babies, and then older ones and teenagers and hormones, and mum and daddy not having enough outlets to get away from them. That's absolutely.
Yeah, I think do you reckon if you have 4 kids and you're in your situation, if COVID hadn't kicked in, would you consider any day trip, even if it was shite, just for the sake of getting away? Like, would you go orienteering for a day just to get out of the house?
Yes, if you can get away. But I mean, it's sort of like you have it's like the peace process between me and her. You know, it's like there has to be a dialogue, and then the dialogue happens, and then no sides agree, and then you have more dialogue because something needs to give, and then something's decided, and both sides mightn't like it, but both sides might just go with it because they want something that they want. Yeah. So that's what it's like to get out. When I was doing comedy before the whole COVID thing kicked in, Andrew would have said to me, now you've got your couple of hours a week that you go and do this and do that. Mm-hmm. I need my couple of hours. And then when COVID kicked in and there was no more comedy, I sort of felt like I had no outlet to sort of brave her with, I need to get out of the house. It was like, you don't need to go anywhere.
Yeah.
And it was sending me crazy, Yeah,
I suppose that's been your thing, is stand-up has been your form of escape. So to go from being lucky enough to be one of the busier acts on the circuit to having nothing. Like, have you done much since gigs have you done Vittorio's gig or anything? Or
yeah, I've done that.
How was that?
It was great, really, really good.
Yeah.
It was I went and done that gig. That was a great gig. It was outdoors and it was lovely. The crowd were up for it, and that was just good to be out doing a proper gig. I did do a recorded one, and that was really strange.
Yeah, how was that? Explain that, because the only person I know that, apart from you, that's done one is Mickey, and he didn't seem overly keen on the idea, of doing much more.
Well, the Balmoral Hotel Hall was booked for me to do it, so I don't know what size they thought it was. It could have been done in a fucking toilet. And there was a sound guy and a cameraman, and I basically had agreed to do 40-minute set till an empty hall.
Right.
So it was like, no, you didn't know. There was no, even if you can have a bad gig, there's reaction. Do you know what I mean? There was nothing. Because
I'm trying to figure out, so was that over Zoom? Like, so was the cameraman filming you or did they just film you in the hall speaking to nobody?
I think they just filmed it in the hall for it to be shown at a later date.
Right.
I think that's what happened.
That's very weird.
It was. The only thing that's came close to that is when I'm asked to do like a quick what do I call it when you're going for, it's an audition, but it's sort of like an audition tape, and you have
Oh
to do
yeah,
it in front. It sort of felt like the dicks that used to do, Big Brother fucking audition tapes,
yeah,
and they show them on TV, and you're going, he's a fucking prick. But now you know how they felt. They were thinking, I really need to do this and do that, and there's no reaction there, and you're trying to do it. It's really tough,
yeah.
to do,
I'd say so. I was offered a few, I think about 2 or 3 over lockdown, and I was just had to politely decline because I was just like, as you say, you need to have people to feed off. So I know people who've done, I know bands and stuff did like corporate gigs over Zoom. So they were playing, but everybody else is on Zoom and listening to them. They're muted. And then after
Yeah,
each song, they would clap and go, yeah, and fucking one more tune and stuff. They were like, that's not so bad. But considering
yeah,
what we do, to have nobody to feed off, to not even have, like, even if you weren't doing well, but to know people were acknowledging what you were saying, that would be better than just playing to nobody.
yeah. I says this is probably the closest thing to porn I'll ever, trying to do porn. Like you're trying to entertain somebody there, and there's just like a guy watching it, and it must be like that. It must be like that. It
Yeah.
must be terrible. It must be one of the toughest jobs. So like, how am I doing here? Don't know. You're not
Yeah.
gonna know your audience until you get the hits in Pornhub here, mate. You're just gonna have to go with it.
Yeah. You're just going to have to wait
It
and
just,
see.
it was tough. It was tough.
Yeah.
And I didn't like it. I'll be honest, I didn't like it.
Yeah, that's fair. I mean, how many people were doing Zoom gigs? There wasn't a lot. People
No.
started gigging again once there was a mic and an audience, regardless of. I know people did. I think Tom the Bear did a drive-through gig with
Mm-hmm.
Joe Rooney and stuff, and I was speaking to him before it, and he was like, I was kind of dreading it. Then when he spoke to me after it, he was like, it was deadly. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So
No,
it's
the drive through ones. I was actually going to do one and going to get a few guys in to do it,
Mhm.
and then it was sort of like, we don't know about the weather, but we could have done it inside and people outside in their cars. But yet again, would it have been the same sort of feeling? There was no guarantee that you were getting the weather, and
Yeah, I think the worst thing about the whole situation is that there doesn't seem to be any definitive information, and then there's guidelines released on a Monday, but then by the Wednesday they've changed again. Because I did a Mickey's Hatfield gig last week, and then we were told that was going to be the last one because there's new regulations coming about gatherings. But then now it's changed again, so they're back again. You know what I mean? So it's the lack of real definitive information that you can't
yeah,
really plan ahead. Definitely not.
no,
Which I assume as
no,
you have a wife and 4 kids, that's a pain in the hole, not being able to kind of
big time.
anticipate shit, like, you know what I mean?
Big time. Well, we had a gig in the Dabneys booked in for the 29th,
Hmm.
which is this Saturday. Then the regulations changed, so they've moved it a month. But I mean,
Yeah,
there's no guarantee that it's not going to change again, and then we'll not have it again in a month. Do you know
yeah,
what I mean?
yeah, because
So
it's,
it is, as you said, it's a pain in the hole.
yeah, for sure. I mean, I know a few people that were supposed to get married in May, and then they've pushed their wedding back to next February, and even they're still on the fence about whether that's going to happen. They're like, maybe we should have pushed it forward another few months just to be on the safe side, because
Mhm.
again, it's just the real grey area. It's the lack of definitive information is what's freaking people out, I think.
No, I think the
Yeah.
whole thing's a lot of bollocks, to be honest with you.
Yeah, about the whole coronavirus in general, do you think? Or
I just think it's there, as I say, there's nobody grabbing it by the scruff and saying, "Daphne, do this."
yeah,
I think what's
absolutely.
wrong is I think the government don't have the money to properly shut down everything the way it should have been.
Yeah,
So they're just sort of going, no, we'll do this, and then we'll do a wee bit of that, and then we'll give it a wee bit of this, and then we'll see how many people get sick again, and then we'll do another wee bit of this, and then we'll do another wee bit of that.
yeah,
They opened up sports clubs there, next minute all the sports clubs are shut down. They opened up bars, and then the bars get shut down. Like there's a builder's merchant I know down the street from me, and that just gets shut down. So it's just mental. You know what I
yeah,
mean? It's just there's nobody going right. You know what it is? We all need to just fucking hide in the house for a year,
for
and
sure.
nobody pays nothing, and they won't do it. They
Yeah,
won't do it.
it's such a cock tease, really, when you think about, say like the bars are back, but then even if you do manage to get out for a pint or whatever, you have to eat, obviously, which is a bit weird. And then all everybody talks about is the fact that we'll probably go back into lockdown again. Do you know what I mean? So
Yep.
even if you do get out for a pint, the banter's shite now because no one's
All
done anything, and all they can
yeah.
talk about is COVID. Like I don't think we'll talk about it much more, but it's hard to not, because even in terms of like doing stand up, I mean, did you talk about COVID at Vittorio's gig, or did you manage to avoid it? Because it's hard to not bring it up. It's like speaking to a taxi man now, you kind of have a...
I would want. Oh, I know what you're saying.
Yeah.
That you have to. I won't say what's the weather like, what time to start at. No, but
Yeah.
at his gig, I think I addressed maybe the first line or something, and I just went, you know what, everybody else has been talking about it. I'm not going to talk about it,
Yeah.
and I just tried to stay away from it.
Yeah,
You know?
I think anybody I've spoken, everybody said they weren't going to speak about it, and then everybody is doing 15-minute sets exclusively about it. But again, it's hard to think of stuff that it's not old stuff.
Yeah, because when it's on your mind and you're talking about it, that's what we do. We talk about things that are happening and what people can relate to, and everybody can relate to this. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, like, you just have to kind of scramble now for anything that's not COVID related in the news that might be worth talking about, because I know a lot of people were speaking about the Jim Carr versus Jedward thing on Twitter. I don't know if you've seen that. Did you look? I didn't look into it overly, but
well, I tell you what happened. I was in Cork on Saturday, and that was strange in itself because Cork looks like an amazing city. It's the first time I've really been in it.
Mm-hmm.
But we went out and basically were allowed in the bar for 90 minutes in one wee corner. And once 90 minutes was up, whether you had finished your drink or not, you were put out, and we couldn't get in anywhere else.
Fuck.
So then we were back in a hotel in Cork for 11:15, and we were trying to get a drink. And then I got a message from Andrew Maxwell on Twitter, and he says, get on quick, because he knew that I had an experience with Jim Carr, whereas Jim Carr wanted to go to a football match one time. The boats were booked out. He had a private jet. My brother-in-law says to me, if you give him tickets to the game, he'll fly us over. And we went in this plane, and I literally didn't want to get back on the plane the way back. He was such a fucking prick.
Right
and
enough.
I mean that.
I didn't know that.
Then.
I've known you for some time. You never mentioned a Jim Carr story. Mind you, you have a lot of stories.
You know what?
Fair, but
I hated it because it was really, really bad weather. And the fact that he had a private jet, he rubbed in my face 20 times in the first 2 minutes that I met him. And how good he was for letting me get on his private jet, because it's his private jet. And I just hated him. And then he asked where I was from. And then when we found out where I was from, and he found out that I didn't earn over so much pounds a day, he was very rude to me, and then started telling me how much the Conservative government were great, and Maggie Thatcher is one of his biggest idols, and I went ballistic on the thing. And funny you say that I never talked about it. I talked about it at an Andrew Maxwell gig because he was talking about it, and he was like, you need to do that bit, you need to talk about that, because people in Ireland need to hear how much of the content. I said, right. And I never done it again, but it was one of them ones where it was an experience. So it was just when that came up on Saturday, then Andrew Maxwell pulled me into his conversation because he knew I had that experience. He's like, please tell a story. And I sort of did, but sort of didn't on the thing. So I will use it as a piece now.
Yeah,
if it's still
for sure. It's just like, it's so weird because it's coming out now that he's such a wanker between yourself and the Jedward thing. But prior to that, I mean, like, he was basically, you know,
just
a no-show.
Of course.
Yeah, and he was, Because I was just trying to think, I mean, like, when they were properly successful, like when they were at their peak, were they getting groupies? Because they're all his sisters. And I say there's all these lads showing up to the green room looking to fucking bust a nut, and Andrea's fucking arsehole. And he's just sitting there going, oh, all the groupies are around my fucking sisters, and he's just strumming away.
How do you know he wasn't busting his nut, the sister? She was my sister, I had a busting on her. It's only your sister from the front. Here, Andrew, turn around a wee minute. I got a release before we go on here.
I suppose, like, they all look alike as well. You probably get confused as well because the three of them look pretty much the same. Do you know, they look more alike than Jedward do, ironically enough. Just
only with better hair.
Oh, for sure. Did you actually watch the Twitter debate against? I know it was something to do with wearing masks. Basically, Jim Carr felt wearing masks was stupid, and Jedward took issue with it, from what I could gauge.
Yeah, well, I think it was more that they had an anti-COVID-19 march in Dublin, but it turned out that it was organised by the far right, which is people in Ireland that don't want immigrants coming in and don't want this and that. So it turns out that he's sort of a member of this far right Irish group. And for Irish people to be far right and say that they don't want immigrants in their country is it's a bit mental, like.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, like, it's just
especially for Jim Carr, who fucking moved away and lived in fucking Switzerland and America and fucking Scotland, as far as I know.
Because he's done nothing else outside of the course. I mean, you know what I mean? He didn't do anything after I know they split, and then they've probably done the Devonish in the last couple of years. They always seem to be like reunion gigs and stuff, isn't it? They seem to be doing. But I do think it's a grim state of affairs where everyone thinks you're a wanker, and then Jedward call you out and somewhat get the better of him too. Like, I mean, that's do you know what I mean? That's like Chico heckling you at a gig and beating you, and you're like, oh, for fuck's sake. You know what I mean?
The cheeky girls winning University Challenge.
Everybody, all the lads from Queens going, fuck's sake. It's just like the Twitter thing. I mean, that's probably the only good thing I've seen on Twitter in a couple of years. I know you're more active on it than I would be, but it's tough going to stay on it a long time without just seeing some disgusting shit, really, isn't it? Like,
it's a bit of a mental one. Like, you sort of you have a bit of a free reign on it, and then you have a bit of success, and then you don't have anything. There's a lot of people steal your shit on Twitter. I had put up a post about doing stuff during the thing. It was about my mates. That's what it was. I put up and says, what's happened to all my mates? I says, we used to all stand in fields and drink cider. Now they're all sitting in hot tubs playing fucking bingo, drinking fucking strawberry daiquiris.
Yeah.
And some girl photoshopped like what I wrote or copied and pasted. Mm-hmm. And it was actually mates of mine were sending it to me and going, how class is this? And I was like, if I had posted that, you wouldn't have reacted to it.
Yeah.
Because fucking the ways 009 from Twinbrick puts it up, everybody thinks she's a legend.
Yeah.
You know?
That's definitely a weird thing, the whole concept of, you know, your material or your social media being nicked. Because I remember for a bit of crack, do you remember when they announced that the bars would reopen? And then I just put up a joke because there was the theory that was on the same day as Arlene Foster's birthday, which it wasn't, but I only put it up for a bit of crack. So I put up some stupid status going, see Ian Thompson's Arlene or something. Then like a couple of different people from various accounts who aren't even on my Facebook put up the same thing. Not the same wording, but it was very similar. But I had people messaging me going, you should like report them. They took your joke. And I was like, I don't think so. Like, you know, it's a pretty, see, it's different if it's something that's if it's very obvious. If it was like a stand-up bit that was very particular to you, like if it was someone doing stuff about like their dad being an Asda or their dad having a stroke or something and doing the same stuff that I do, I'd be like, all right, you've clearly nicked that. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Have you had any of your stuff, like stand-up stuff, nicked, do you think, or that you're being aware of?
Yeah,
sorry.
Yeah, a few different people. Yeah, there's a couple of comedians do stuff that's like very, very similar. There's a comedian down south does the whole bit about altar boys being abusing the priest bit.
Right. You've been doing that.
Was something I'd done that way at the start.
Yeah, very.
But he uses it all the time now, and I just happened to be doing a gig with somebody, and they were there, and they were like, "Oh, that's such and such's piece," and I was like, "Is that right?" When they start doing that, and he was like, "Oh, he's doing it now, just about a year," and I was like, "Oh, well, I done it 10 years ago, you know." Yeah. And he probably seen it in a gig I done down there, that way. But yeah, you have that. You're going to get that. There's people being very successful here that are just taking stuff that other people's done, whether it be locals or some of us now that's still on the sort of scene, or whether they're going back to comedians from here from years ago and taking their stuff and putting it up.
How do you feel now about the scene here compared to like when we started? Because for anybody that is listening to this, they probably would know that we started pretty much within a fortnight of each other. Were you first, or was it me? Were you first?
I think you were like a week or two before me.
Yeah.
And then, because I sort of came in and then asked you what way it was, you sort of gathered who was a prick and who wasn't, and I sort of knew you'd be, do you know what I mean? So then I sort of asked, I was trying to find my feet, and I was asking you, and you were sort of saying, well, you can do this and you can do that. And as you know, we sort of started at the same time, so it meant we were traveling, did a lot of gigs, doing a lot of stuff for nothing, all around the place.
Yeah.
And with the shared cars and done that,
Yeah.
I think the scene back then, you had a few proper pricks, who thought they were like the top dogs, and when you look back now, they were only top dogs in sort of open mic stuff.
Yeah.
Whereas they'd been doing it a year before you, and they didn't really change their material. And then I think sort of in the past 3-4 years, it's really came to light, the people that's still around we're the ones who actually know what they're doing, you know.
Yeah, that's fair.
And we're very strong, because when I went to London, there's guys over there and they be doing the same 7 minutes for 15 years.
Yeah,
And they
that's
just haven't progressed anywhere, you know.
100%. Funny enough, I was speaking to Vittorio yesterday for an episode of this, and he said exactly the same, where he was like, what he felt about our scene, because technically, even though he's from Belfast, he still feels like Belfast isn't a hometown gig for him. But he was saying, and this is a good and a bad thing, I suppose, but he was like, anytime he comes over to do gigs and see all the boys, we're all doing longer sets, so the amount of new stuff we churn out is actually mad when you think about it. The amount of new stuff between all of us, but at the same time, could we go back and do a 5-minute spot somewhere? It wouldn't be easy for most of us to go back and just do 5. Do you know what I mean? But again,
we sort of all got to the stage where there's nobody really. And people say it's a clique. It's not a clique. It's a nucleus of comedians that are half decent at what they do.
Yeah.
Maybe with their own wee styles, and it works. You know, I think a lot of us circle around sort of the likes of Colin Gaddis has a massive range of following. But his gigs are sort of the gigs that you would want to be doing, because you don't have to restrict yourself. You know, there's a lot of gigs that I would go and do, and you have to restrict yourself from what you actually can do. Whereas I know when I stand up in one of Lavery's or say the Limelight, if Colin's on the bill, you know that people are there, they're not going to be offended, and you can just do what you want to do.
Yeah.
Which is great. I love those gigs. And then there's the other, like if I go to the Empire, I can't be the same way in the Empire as I would be in Lavery's.
Oh, for sure.
You know, but although there is a scene, it's a very selective scene that we have, and probably not as big as you'd want it to be. You know, you would think that we could near enough have a comedy club in every wee town or village, or you know, and rotate it, but it doesn't work out that way. You know.
Yeah. I do agree with what you're saying. There's something about Lavery's, and there's obviously a clear connection that Lavery's is probably the best gig in the city, because anybody who plays it, as you say, doesn't feel like they have to adhere to certain audience members. They just go out and do their set the way they want to do it. And generally, as long as you're funny, I don't think it matters if you're alternative or if you do a character or if you're if you do props or have music. It doesn't matter as long as it's funny. Whereas, and the thing is about Lavery's, if you do Lavery's solidly and do nothing else, and then you go do the Braid in Ballymena or you do the Empire, you come across like the biggest psycho, because you say cunt and spastic about 1,000 times, and there's just pensioners watching you being shocked to the gills. Do you know what I mean? I remember looking back at the gigs we did. One of my fondest memories, in the weirdest way, was trying to find Gary Lynch's Looking gig. Ironically named Looking gig, because we looked for that bastard for about 3 hours.
It is mental that you mentioned that, but as I said, I was in Cork on Saturday.
Yeah.
And you have to go out the M50.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously now I know a lot more ways around stuff, but it was the road that we had to take where we got lost that night. And I actually was thinking about that gig, and it was a mental gig. The pizza down the stairs in a pizza place.
That's right, yeah. There's me, you, Joe Rooney from Father Ted headlined. Gary was on. I don't know who else was on, but that, like, we the gig started late because of us. Anyway, I remember that when Gary was sound enough to wait for us, because nobody else would have done that, to be fair.
But you're the right pizza, so they didn't really care. Like.
Yeah.
But no, that was a gig. I remember that, driving down Fat. And all the times you drove down, like we would have drove for hours. Do you remember the time we went to Derry and done a gig in a pub in Derry, and the guy that was running the gig got up and he was rather drunk. Fell over the table, and then told the headliner he was only allowed to do 2 minutes because he had went over in his time.
And he said, what did he say? He was that drunk. He said, I have a child named Daughter.
He says, I'm from fucking Derry, and you fucking doing that there and fucking that.
He sounded, do you ever see Derry people when they get drunk? They sound more like they're from Beijing than anywhere else in the world. If you listen to somebody from Derry, and then the drunker they get, it's just like, fucking that, how you fucking doing? I fucking love it. Hi.
I think like it's so weird. Those gigs at the time, like they seem so horrendous, but when you look back, you wouldn't change any of that shit. Maybe if it was a
Well,
gig when they
the
refused to
crack was
pay you or some
amazing.
shit, but it
The
was
crack was
unbelievable.
amazing. Yeah, no, it was. The crack in the car was actually a lot more than the gigs sometimes.
Oh yeah,
The
100%.
journeys. I remember coming back from one of your gigs in Strabane. No way, it takes you a week to get there, and
Yeah, different time
as
zone and
I
everything.
say,
Like
you have to go through Sierra Leone. What's it called?
Cyan Mills.
Cyan Mills. I remember coming back and somebody was giving me a lift and they had the same car as the in-betweeners. It was a wee white Fiat. Or it wasn't, it was a yellow Fiat.
Yeah,
And it was tiny. And there was me, Alan Irwin, and it was his mate driving. His mate wasn't a comedian. And
that's
I
right.
fell asleep.
I
And they
remember.
recorded me. I farted the whole way from like coma in the back of that wee car. And the sun was coming up and the windows down. And my phone was ringing like non-stop because Andrew was obviously going, right, he stayed out all night. But we hadn't. We're just trying to get back from Strabane in a fucking go-kart. And they recorded me. And see when I see the video, it was fucking mental. See if they put it up now, they'd get some views on it. It'd be
Yeah.
fucking, it was nuts.
That would have been one of the early Dicey's gigs because I remember you all came back to my ma's for a bit and got fed and then bounced on because I remember that Alan had brought down his mate and that's when we brought Alan on stage via
chained up on a trolley.
Yeah, chained up in like the keg trolley, so he looked like Hannibal Lecter.
And he gets out and he's like, "Hello, I'm home.
I'm from Lisburn, but I'm always unwell."
My face is massive.
Here, I tell you what, he is the biggest face I've ever seen.
With the tiniest features.
Oh yeah, and then McCann's the opposite. You know what I mean?
He's just huge.
He's like, what do you call those like football players used to get back? Those wee football toys.
Superior one. That's Superior one. I know what you mean. Now.
So what else?
McCann would actually have the best bobblehead, wouldn't he?
Oh, for sure. Yeah. It'd be mad. What was I going to say? What have you been doing then? Like, have you been working over lockdown, and just in terms of general bread and butter stuff, or how's all that been affected?
No, it's been up and down, to be honest with you. I mean, obviously people wouldn't want you in their house, and it's all right because I have the joinery that I can fall back onto.
Mm-hmm.
You know, prior to that, if you're doing 3 to 4 gigs a week, you couldn't do as much during the day because you constantly be out of the house. So I used to just divide it up, or try and juggle around. But then when the COVID thing kicked in, obviously everybody's seen the video of me in the shop putting your man out. So I ended up doing security in the shop for a couple of weeks. And then I was like, do you know what? Being back and where I'm from and doing security on a shop where you're fighting my grannies at 90, because they're heroin dealers, it's a bit ridiculous.
So, yeah, because I got sent that video from the Spar incident, which I want you to explain to anybody who mightn't have seen it. But it wasn't a comedian that sent it to me. It was like a mate of mine from work ended up WhatsApping it to me, and I was just like, "That's fucking Paddy McDonnell." And then within a couple of minutes, I think you put it in our group. But explain what happened there. So because that video went sort of semi-viral. How many hits do you reckon it got? Do you know exactly?
I don't know exactly, but I know that Jim McDonald, Charlie, whatever his name is, it used to be in Coronation Street, had it up. Like, look at the state of these fiends. Look at the state of these fiends. This is why I moved over to England. Leisure, here, so you are. But no, the mad thing about it was I went into the shop, and the guy had went into the shop to steal mincemeat for his wife because he'd been out partying and he had no money. So he tried to put the mincemeat down his balls, right? And obviously he was off his head. So he was doing it very, very obviously.
Yeah.
The butcher seen him, the manager seen him, so the manager approached him and was like, "Here, you need to fucking stop putting mincemeat down your balls." And he threw him into the pile of Weetabix, believe it or not, right? So the butcher then grabbed him in the headlock, and then I heard a kid screaming at the cash desk, and I looked and I seen the kid screaming, and I was like, "What's wrong?" And I said, "Mommy, what's the matter?" And she went, "Look," and I seen him sort of fighting with the butcher. So I went and put him in the chokehold and took him out. And when I got outside, like within 2 seconds, he was nearly out because I'd put him in the proper chokehold and he was about to black out.
Yeah.
And I heard this wee woman screaming, and I looked at her, and when I looked up at her, I seen about 50 people standing with their phones out recording, and I was like, this isn't going to go well, because the night before, I'd been assaulted with a baseball bat in Ballymurphy. So
Your stories end up with like so many
although
branches.
it's not, you can't even just be hit by one car. I'm one of them ones. I was knocked down by 12 cars. Do you know what I mean? But the night before, a friend of mine had asked for a land of the van to go and buy a hot tub and a few fencing panels, and obviously I wasn't using my van. So I says, of course I'll land in the van. And I'm just like, where are you going? And I was like, I'm landing Frankie the van. And he was like, right, okay. How long are you going to be? 20 minutes. Left the house, drove into Ballymurphy, get out of my van, and a guy hit me over the head with a baseball bat.
Fucking hell. A baseball bat's weird.
Frankie, who I was lending the van to, eventually found out what happened. I'm laying out the front, and all these guys are out there. And he run out, he ended up headbutting one of them, who was semi-blind and knocked his tooth out. So my mate Frankie ended up getting arrested. So I came back to the house, and then the next minute the cops are at the door. So the cops are here all night because I was assaulted, taking statements. So Andrew had to deal with the kids all night. She was like, 20 minutes of dropping your van down to your mate, and next minute the police are at the door, and it's all this madness. And I was like, love, don't worry about it. I go out the next day to go get baby milk, and I'm on fucking TV before, she was sitting in the house, and the next minute the phone's going mental. Your Paddy's fucking just killed a fella in the Springfield Road house with bare hands. And she's looking at it going, what the fuck has he done? And she thought then I must have recognised him as the guy that hit me with a baseball bat. So she was thinking that I had attacked him in the shop. And then all these people's getting it. So she didn't even finish to watch the video. She just sent me messages, don't come back to my house. And I'm like, well, I can't go to my ma's because she's on fucking lockdown. Just fucking seriously ill. Like, if I go there, I'm definitely not coming back, like, because of the stay in the house with her. So, but yeah, no, your mom was stealing from the shop, and I basically put him out, and then the owner of the shop was like, I could use a man like you. I could use a man like you. And I was like, well, I want to get out of the house, but no, I hated it. I haven't done the door in years, as you know. That's how I ended up in stand-up, because I got my finger bit off, and I left being a bouncer and stuff like that. So I just hated it. I hate confrontation. I hate any of that. And down there, it was just, you see me back in the door, and people that had grudges against you years ago want to come up and fight you, and it's just like, wise up.
It's just not worth the hassle, is it?
No,
what happened to the mincemeat?
It was lovely. I made spaghetti with it.
Spag ball.
Spag ball and cheese. Didn't even have to put parmesan on it.
Bolognese.
Bolognese. You love all that.
I
you get a bit smarty out here about that.
Oh, for sure. Like I was thinking, I've done a few earlier podcasts, and on 3 separate occasions, you came up basically because random comedians were going, where will we be with Paddy McDonnell and his WhatsApp messages, and
during lockdown.
Oh yeah, and a story that came up frequently was the story of you playing 5-a-side football after having a very serious operation, which is one of the best stories of all time.
I'm the only man. Well, so the doctor says I'm the only man in Ireland that's had a vasectomy twice.
Again, explain.
Well, what happened was I went to get the operation, and the thing about getting that done is you'll have a wide range of people telling you different stories about what it's like, how you're going to feel. So I basically stopped listening to that and went, I'm going to judge for myself when I go and get it done. So obviously went to get it done. And the doctor knew who I was. He's from West Belfast, even though he was working in a clinic outside. And when he seen it was me coming in, obviously knew I had a tattoo down there. Has a load of students. His son knows me and stuff, so he thought it was a bit of crack. He brought 20 students in to show them it. So I'm sitting there, and 20 students are looking at the tattoo, and we're all having a bit of a joke and a slag. And he done the operation, and he was like, now you have to take it easy, because I know the type of you. You'll not take it easy. He says, are you going back to work tomorrow? And I was like, yeah. Are you going to be doing this? He said, yeah. And he was like, well, don't, because it's serious. But I came out of the operation. I wasn't thinking straight. And a mate sent me a message and says, you up for 5-a-side still? And I was like, huh? Because he couldn't get anybody last minute. So I just went and played 5-a-side. And it was sort of after it, I went, I don't think that was a good idea. Not just because I'm fucking overweight, but it was, I'm starting to feel that there. And then within a day, like, it was just, they were beyond. It was like that's what I said. It was like the Death Star out of thing, because it just had the wee hole in it, and then it was black, like a big black ball.
Yeah, because I obviously I seen it backstage at the Limelight when we were doing a gig. It wasn't just because we were backstage at Limelight, and it looked a bit better. But I'd say post 5-a-side,
I would say, yeah, Cormac McDermott and Willie Thompson, Shane Todd, and Aaron Butler seen it. They were privy to it, because I had came to do the shooting for their wee thing, and that they got to see it, and I was like, lads, look at that. Yeah. They were like, really?
How did you find doing that was Belfast Blues you were referring to there, Shane and Aaron's thing? How did you find doing that?
It was great. I enjoy the wee filming and the crack and stuff that we had. The crack we had was the bloopers. I thought was the best bit about it. But yeah, no, I liked it. It was a wee bit different, but a lot of mixed reviews on it. People that I know were like, what the fuck was that you done? And then other people have stopped me in the street and were like, mate, you're fucking such and such and that. I love that. So I suppose it's like comedy, it was quirky enough. I thought that it would have had a bit of a following. So
yeah, but I suppose too, I was speaking to Aaron about it. He sort of feels, looking back, that they should have released it maybe just every day for like 5 days in a row instead of, wasn't it weekly they released it?
Yeah,
because I think just to keep the momentum going. But
I think they were hoping that they would hope that the anticipation of waiting to see it. People aren't like that now. People want to sit down and if you go to watch fucking Braveheart and you're going to work the next morning at 5:30 in the morning, you'll still stay awake at 2:30 just to watch it, and people are they're binging on stuff, so they want to just see it all. Yeah. And then once you get fed up with it, they stop watching it.
Yeah, I think like everybody binges everything nowadays, and then when you think about it, you could binge fucking Game of Thrones or whatever, but how much of it do you actually remember? Like, because I binged a few shows and then I went back and went, I don't fucking remember this bit or this person or this fucking subplot. So yeah, like I think that's a real thing now, that people just want everything instantly and they want to watch everything on their own time. Because I can't remember the last time I turned on the TV specifically to watch something. Usually it's just Friends in the background or some shit. I can't think of anything I've actually.
The TV gets turned on more like an electric fire now, just to have the effect of a light on in the room.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
Yeah,
definitely that happens with people now.
Yeah, I think like do you watch much stand up in terms of
I have stopped watching. The only stand up I'll watch is if like yourself put a clip up, or Sheen or Colin or Aaron, any of the local boys, Mickey.
Yeah,
I'll watch it because I enjoy watching Newsboys and stuff like that. And I know I don't mind watching local acts because I know if they're doing something and I think it's a great bit, it won't go into my head to use it because I know that you've done it. Yeah. But you can find yourself watching. I done it a couple of years ago where I watched something and I felt when I went out, I sort of mimicked what they had done. I didn't do the same material, but I mimicked sort of their actions, and I went, I need to stop doing that because that's not good.
Yeah.
You don't want to do that.
Yeah, there's a lot of people that say when you start out doing stand-up that your first year or two, you're basically just a carbon copy of your personal favorite comedian, and then that sort of leaves you if you keep going. But I don't I sort of believe it. But in terms of like yourself, for me, I can't really look back at your early stand-up and go, he's doing this. You know what I mean? I never really felt that with a lot of people in our scene specifically. Whereas sometimes you go down south and you can see Tommy Tiernan, you can see the very, very odd Dylan Moran, the odd bit of Jason Byrne. I didn't really feel that. There's no one in our scene that I felt was trying to be Tim McGarry or Jake or Colin Murphy. There was enough unique comedy character. Maybe not like straight away, but after a couple of years, everybody was their own thing, which is weird for somewhere so small and a scene so small that there was such variety.
Well, I just think that we've done it that way, and obviously there's other ones that's just there's boys there that's more popular and have a bigger fan base and stuff like that, but it doesn't feel any different, being around them or doing them, and you wouldn't want to sort of take their material or do, I sort of feel like the Colin's doing the Odyssey now. You know, it's absolutely amazing.
Yeah.
But we could be sitting gigging with him in Lavery's the Wednesday after. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I agree. The whole vibe has not changed. You know, there are some boys that are doing big venues, but like on paper, I mean, we're all at the stage now. We're all doing solo shows. Like me, yourself, and Willie T, maybe someone else, all did solo shows in the Limelight last year.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And that's still, you know, it's not as big as the Odyssey, but there's still a lot of work that goes into that. You're still, on paper, churning out an hour or 10 minutes of material, maybe longer, which, to bring it back to the start, not a lot of people can be doing that every year. Like, that's not easy, but because we churn out so much stuff, you know what I mean? Because, you know, when we first started out, we were gigging together a lot, so we kind of knew each other's sets backwards. Whereas now, because we're doing our own thing to an extent, when we do Lavery's together, you're doing stuff that I've never heard you do before. And then when I speak to you after, you're like, oh no, I've never done that before. Do you know what I mean? Which is great, you know, because you're just like,
no, completely
churning out new stuff, and it's doing well.
There's bits even I've said to you about, and I was like, that bit's great, and you were like, yeah, I've done it like such and such, and then I've brought it forward again or done that, and you're like, oh, that's class. Do you know what I mean? Yeah, no, you definitely do get that, and it's great.
Like, to be able to sort of do a solo shows, a lot of work as a community.
I mean, I remember when I started. I mean, I done a solo show. I think you done a half an hour or 40 minutes, and a split show within 9 months. I think you were doing that in the Black Box, because I think you were on before I done mine.
Yeah, because I think you got the room free of mate, and you had extra time, so I basically did a show beforehand, but that was quite early into the thing. But maybe in my case, that probably wasn't the best idea. But
we were only doing it like 9 months, 10 months, and I done an hour and 15 minutes, like, which is at least a half an hour longer than I should have been doing. But you know, I remember inviting people to it. I'm not saying no names, who were on the scene for a so-called long time prior to that. But one of them, the only one of them that said something, he came up to me and he was like, what scared me is that the likes of you and Rory are only doing this 9 months, and you are turning out 30, 40, 50 minutes of good stuff. You know? I was on for an hour 15. He says, like I said, you turned out 30, 40 or 50 minutes of good stuff. And I sort of knew. But, you know, that was good to hear that.
Oh, for sure.
And then I done a solo show every sort of year, and then I sort of went to myself, no, this is not what you need to do. You don't do that. But obviously styles and stuff change, you know, and material that you do changes. Obviously, as you grow and you get older. And I remember, like, for a while there, I would have been sort of the only one that was married or had kids out of a crowd of yous, and now you're all starting to get married and have kids. So I'm sort of going, right, they're all going to start doing stuff that I was doing prior, so I need to move on to other stuff.
So you got the snip?
You know, like becoming a granda. But sure, there's even people that don't even have kids that got the snip. So crazy.
Yeah. Do you feel now you're, like, in terms of your style and stand-up, do you feel you're different than when you started out, or do you feel you've just stuck to the same thing, but you've just, like, constantly
changed
sort of
material.
got more comfortable?
Yeah, changed material, probably. But I do think that I sort of have like 3 different types of sets I do. You know, I have one that I do sort of like Lavery's, you can be yourself and just sort of go for it. And then I have my stuff that I'll do other places. And then I have my real corporate stuff, which is like so clean, and I don't enjoy that stuff. I like the money, but I don't like the actual doing it, if you know what I mean.
Oh yeah,
you're like as much enjoyment out of it.
Yeah, you're like dead behind the eyes, sort of just churning it out. But real.
It'd be like what guys who have to go out, you know, musicians have to go out and do weddings because they're big pairs for them.
Yeah.
And they're doing fucking teenage dirtbag songs and all stuff that they don't normally do. You know, it's funny because you see these guys and you know they're real rockers or, you know, real punks, and they're standing up wearing a suit singing songs that they don't want to sing, you know.
Yeah, they're singing like Neil Diamond, and you're like, you look like you listen to Megadeth exclusively, you know what I mean? And then in the opposite way, like I've been to a few weddings where it's a bunch of old fellas playing like, you know, Country Roads and all the old, and then some girls, well, and all that shit. But then because there's young people, they have to start chucking in Ed Sheeran, Bruno Mars and Prince and stuff like that. And you can tell they've just Googled, you know what I mean, the notes and the lyrics, and they're just kind of Purple Rain, and you're like, you don't have a fucking baldy.
I was at one where Daniel O'Donnell was doing M&M tricks.
Serious? Again?
Well, I'm the Slim Shady, but I'm the real Shady, but the real Slim Shady. Just the real Shady, oh, the real way Shady. Will you please stand up, yeah, boy, yeah. I'm not throwing the swear words in, but I'll sing the rest.
This one's called Niggers in Paris.
Oh, the N-word in Paris, it's the place to be.
So speaking of weddings, we can't not have you on this and not talk about a little bit of the bubbly, because I spoke to Mickey about it, and Dave and Aaron to an extent, even though Aaron was just physically there, but you were actually physically involved in the drinking of the bubbly. And it looked like the messiest affair I've ever seen in my whole life. I don't know how much money you spent, because I tried to ask Mickey to give me an approximate figure. He didn't know. McCann had no clue. Dave didn't have an idea.
Well, it was a strange one, because I don't know if I told you this, but I had booked an Airbnb. I probably did tell you, but I don't know if you remember.
You said you had accommodation, but it fell through, but you didn't say what happened. I don't think
it didn't fall through. It was I had booked an accommodation with Airbnb, and it was in the main street around the corner from your hotel. And I turned up, and the guy was standing at the door with a wee orange jumper on, and he had a sheepdog. And I get out of the car, and he took one look at me, and he was like, "What are you up here for?" And I was like, "I'm at a wedding around the corner." And he went, "Do you think I'm thick?" And I was like, "What are you talking about?" He says, "You're not getting this place." And I went, "Why not? I'm on my own. Like, it's not. I'm just going to a wedding. It's just somewhere to put my head down. Probably won't get in until the early hours, and then I'll be away early again because of kids and have to get home." And he was like, "Nope. You think I'm stupid? The hotel's going to buck you all out, and you're going to come around here and party. And there's probably a big carrot that boot." And I was like, "No." And he wouldn't give me it. Like, literally wouldn't give me the Airbnb.
Yeah, dirty bastard.
So I says to the boys, "Listen, I'm going to have to sleep in the car, or I'm not drinking." So at the very start of the little bit of the bubbly, I actually wasn't drinking.
Oh, really?
Until it got on my nerves that much that I went, I need to start drinking, or I'm going to fucking kill these cunts.
I know. You wonder how.
So then I only started drinking at about 10:30. So I was actually still that wee bit sober. So that's why I wasn't as mad into the wee bit of the bubbly as they were.
Yeah.
But then obviously I checked my phone the next day, and I had videos of McCann having the shit, and I was doing a little bit of the bubbly, and then I had videos of sleeping with Mickey and Aaron in the bed, and doing a little bit of the bubbly, and the guy coming up and trying to throw us out of the room. Oh, it was funny, like.
Yeah.
But no, I mean, I didn't even realize how big it was until like the next day when people were saying that there was hilarious, and I was going, "What are you talking about?" And then I went on Instagram and seen it, and I was like, "Oh my god!"
Yeah, like from what I understand, like obviously it's based off a Chris Jericho video. I don't follow any wrestling, but apparently it's Chris Jericho, and I think McCann said that he retweeted it or something. Yeah, and then obviously that got a real bit of buzz.
McCann mentioned it at the table and was like, "Did you see this about Jericho?" Showed it to Mickey. They had a giggle. Then showed it to Butler. Then they had a giggle. Then he showed it to Dave. Then they had a thing. And then McCann done it. Then Mickey done it. And then the next minute it was just like, "There's free bubbly over." And then it just went mental. And then when that all disappeared, it was like, "There's no more bubbly." Then it was like, "Let's buy bubbly." Yeah. So I know I bought 4 bottles of it. And that was late. Yeah. That was late. But I sort of spent money that I would have spent in the Airbnb on it. So I actually had a cheap night. Yeah, I gave Mickey and Aaron money for breakfast the next morning because I felt bad. But no, but it was great, wasn't it? I enjoyed it.
It was some crackhead, but I mean, I could tell something was happening from where I was sitting. But then, apart from I did it at the very start, but then I just had no idea of the extent of it. Where you see like the lift in the lobby opening and just a wee glass of bubbly in there and stuff. And
it just kept going. It was one of them ones that just kept going. It should have stopped maybe a half an hour before it should have, but it just kept going. Yeah. But I told you I had a dream about your wedding, didn't I? Not that long ago. I sent you a message about it.
You were saying, I can't remember exactly what you said, but we were speaking about it. Yeah, what was it again? I'll try and find the message you sent.
Basically, what happened was it was so detailed because it actually happened. Like, not what I dreamt happened, but the wedding happened. So your father-in-law shot at the speeches. Your mate Sean, your best man.
Right.
Right? And like your ma was so calm about the whole thing, and everybody in the wedding was like, "Oh fuck, what are we going to do here?" And your mummy was like, "Nobody panic." it's Lisa's big day. You know, everybody needs to calm down. It's only Sean that's been shot. It's only Sean that's been shot. We can get over this and deal with it tomorrow, but we'll have to let Rory and Lisa have their day. And I was like, but he's no fucking head. You know, and then in the background, fucking McCann and Vicky's going, little bit of bubbly. A little bit of bubbly. But it was very detailed, and it was just dead weird because I woke up and I was like, I need to look up and see if that happened or did that not happen. You know, one of them ones, and I was like, there's no way it happened. And then I was like, no, but the conversations you were having with Rory's mummy, like definitely something happened there. It didn't.
Fucking madness. Huh? The amount of stories, like, I think you must have now, because I was trying to think of the ones I wanted you to bring up on this. The one I was like, it's an old stand-up bit you used to do about you were working as in like an Irish shop in Belfast city centre. You know, the place, and you got caught short and had to ring your mum. Tell that story for sure. That's one of my. Do you still do that bit?
Very rarely.
Yeah.
I always bring the stuff with me to do it, and then go, fuck, I never put that in, because it can go on really long. It really depends. The short version of it was we went till Disneyland that Christmas. So we brought the two kids to Disneyland. We went Boxing Day and we came back. And the first job I got when I came back was putting the fire strips on the doors in that Irish shop, which was open. There used to be the old Top Shop, so it's beside City Hall there. And you know it yourself, when you walk past it, the Irish music's blaring out. So there's no parking. So it got dropped off at it. But the tablets, because you were in America and you're eating all the fast food, my gout was kicking off, and they give you tablets.
Right.
And the reason the gout happens is you don't get rid of the acid out of your blood, right? And the acid goes into your joints, and then your body puts like pus around it, and that's the sorbent. That's where it becomes sore. So I get it in my feet, so I can't walk. So I've all these tablets in me because I'm only back from Disneyland. I haven't got a pound in my name. I had to go into work, and I was already struggling. I took too many tablets. You're meant to take 1 5 times a day. I took 5 straight away, first thing in the morning, with a banana. Do you know what I mean? It was never going to end well. I didn't know how bad they make you, right? But they make you fucking shit for Ireland. So I was up the stairs in there, and I felt it coming on. I was trying to run down the corridor, so it made loads of noise. I basically went in, and when we were in America, Andrew made me buy the braces. They were like a camouflage to keep my trousers up, because I had lost a bit of weight. And she says, your work trousers are always hanging down, your holes always hanging out. So you're working down that shop, you need to wear them. So I had the braces on. When I run in to go to the toilet, I forgot I had the braces on, and I pulled the straits out dead quick to do a shade. But obviously they're stretchy. So when I pulled them down, I fucking projected out of my arse through the braces. And it was like, it was like somebody done shit in a big water balloon and fucked it in the room. That's the only way I could describe it.
Banksy.
And when I stood up, my phone had fell down in the toilet, so it wasn't working. And I was just sitting there looking around me, and I just went, what do you do? Like, what do you do? It's just, and all I could hear was the Irish music playing, but there was 2 wee girls in the staff room, and I knew they were sitting going, what is he doing in there? Like, he's been in there an hour. And I was like, this is trouble. And the girl came up who was the manageress, she was like Polish. And I had said to her, listen, she was like, you okay? And I was like, no. And I says, go and get a pen and piece of paper. I'm going to give you a phone number, and I need you to phone somebody for me. And she was like, who do you need me to phone? Is it the Samaritans or the police? I was like,
St. John's Ambulance.
no, it's my ma. And she was like, seriously? And I was like, yeah. And can you tell her I need this list of stuff? And she was like, right, okay. So I think she got the gist when I gave her the list of stuff that I wanted my ma to bring down. So my ma came down with all the stuff, but I hadn't lived with my ma's from 2000, and I left to go to America in 1989, and then I came back. I lived with her for a couple of months, 2001 or something. So the last tracksuit I had was like, you know, I was still wearing size 28 jeans, and the tracksuit she brought was like a shell suit thing that fitted me years ago, but it didn't fit me now. And she couldn't find any trainers for me, so my dad had a pair of white high-tack tennis shoes that he used for cutting the grass, and they were all green around the outside, and she got them. So she came up the stairs in black bags, and I spent like an hour cleaning the toilet. And I was like, it's still nothing coming off the wall. I'm going to have to get the place painted full. And I put everything in this black bag, and then I had to do the walk of shame through the shop and out. But my ma was able to park right outside because she's disabled and she has a disabled badge. So I get into the car, and my ma was driving through the town, and she was feeling shit for me, but she was sort of looking at me, and I was looking at her, and we stopped at the lights at the back, and she turned around, and she was like, I love the fact that, you know, you're this age and you're married and you have kids, but you felt like you could call me instead of your wife, and I love the fact that you would still do that. And I turned around her and I went, well, I don't mean to bust your bubble, like, but the only reason why I rang you is because I knew you could park right outside because you have a disabled badge. She nearly threw me out. She had to throw me out. I think I could have fucking stood and sold big issues the way I was dressed. It was crazy. But no, it was mental. It was.
The amount of stories you have is actually mad. Huh? I love it.
No, people say to me all the time, and McCann's one of them people. I've told McCann stuff. He stayed in my house and stuff, and I told him a few stories, and he was like, why do you not do that on stage? And I was like, McCann, there's only so many of these you can do where people go, oh, now, come on. Do you know what I mean? Come on, really? Like, if you were to say to somebody, I got my finger bit off by one of my old school teachers while I was doing the door.
Yeah.
Because you're a comedian now, and they're like, that's bollocks.
Yeah.
But then you show them the finger, and then they Google it, and the next minute, like I remember doing that at a gig one night, and a girl sent me a message and went, we didn't believe you, but I Googled it, and it's on Google. You know, the story about it. It was a big, high-profile case. It went on, and I was like, I know. But people genuinely don't believe you. Like, I went to do the Fela one night, which was in the Dabnish with Jacob Kane, and the doorman wouldn't let me into the gig. And I physically, like, I'm not even joking. I went round the back of the Dabnish and broke in through the fire escape. Like, I busted the fire escape door to get into the gig because I wasn't into it. And that was my opening joke, and everybody was laughing.
Yeah.
But it was legit.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's just one of them things. It's just only that stuff in the spar. I could have told you that happened, but only that there was 50 cameras, like a Premiership football match, that people were actually able to go, oh my God. That sure Connor Keith didn't even know it was me.
Yeah, like it took me a few minutes to go. Is it like I was pretty sure it was you, but I had to sort of wait till I got a certain angle till I was like, oh, that's definitely him. But I see what you mean. I mean, one of our early gigs that we did in Lurgan, which is why I remember it, in Lurgan in the Courthouse Bar, you showed up and you basically should have went to hospital instead of like doing the gig, and you told the story of what happened to you before the gig, and you could tell. It wasn't a great gig anyway. There wasn't a lot of people listening, but to the 6 people that were, they were going, he's chatting out of his hole, even though you were still bleeding. Because remember, you got trapped. You had to go in. You got locked out or something.
Andrea went till the zoo with the kids and her ma and her sister, and I had no key to get into the house. And I phoned her, and I was like, I've got home from work. I have a gig in Lurgan. I need to get in. Where are you? She was like, the zoo. And I was like, right, you're going to have to bring a key over. She's like, no, don't. And I was like, well, I have a gig, I need to go. And she's like, well, tough. And basically, long story short, I went around the back, seen the bathroom window was open, put my ladder up, tried to get in, but with 2 dogs at the time, and the dogs pulled the ladder. I fell back and went in through the glass and like stuck into it. And it was double glazing. So the first pane broke, but the second one didn't. So then I had to sort of wedge myself out and get in the window at the same time. And I basically still had glass in my back when the guy up in the courthouse looked at my back. He says, there's still a big piece of glass. It was Haggerty, actually. There's a piece of glass hanging out of your back. And I was like, I didn't want to let you down. And he was like, you didn't want to let me down. Like, you fucking fell through a pane of glass. And you're cut open. You didn't want to let me down. I was like, no, I don't like letting people down.
Again, just the joys of the early gigs, I think, you know?
Yeah, bit of crack.
So how do you think it's going to be now over the next few months? Can you see? I can't see stand-up being regular this year for anybody.
No. I think it's going to be a lot of stop and going.
Yeah.
I'm just hoping that it does take off. Like this gig that I have in September, I don't even know if that's going to happen.
Yeah.
I just don't. It might not.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, it's just very, very weird. But again, maybe, you know, it's just a test for us to adapt to different ways of doing it. Like, as again, I wouldn't do a Zoom gig, but if I had to do a drive-through or like I'm going to do Vittorio's garden gig at some point before he goes back to London.
Here, did he tell you about how he came up with the idea for that or anything? No.
He said when I spoke yesterday something about his mate's sister or son had like a graduation party in their garden, and he was at it, and he was like, "There's nothing really stopping me doing a wee raised stage and lights and stuff." But was he lying?
Yeah.
Yeah. What's the real reason so I can slag him?
Because I fucking said, tell him about it, because I seen the guys doing it down south, and I says, "Do you want to do sort of outdoor gigs? If we could do it in the park, we could do it in here." And he was like, yeah. He'd be like, "Well, don't say it to nobody until we can get it set up." And then a week later, he had it up, him and Mickey and Robbie, and I sent a message. He was like, "What's happening?" And he was like, "Oh, mate, it happened that quick." And I was like,
Sneaky.
but I sort of brought the idea to you. And he was like, "Oh, but you didn't invent garden gigs." I mean, no, I didn't invent garden gigs, but you knew nothing about it until I approached you about it. And then you checked out the legislation, and he was like, "Do you hate me now?" And I was like, "I don't follow with anybody, mate, but I just think it was a bit shit that it wasn't on the first one, you know."
So you did actually do the garden gig then, fair play to you?
Yeah, no, in all fairness, I was sort of, I didn't invent the garden gigs, but I did say, tell them about doing it, because I did have an idea of getting something up, or even us doing it portable, where people could have invited you, because it was just when it changed till 30 people can be in a garden.
Mm-hmm.
And I was sort of thinking, well, if magicians are flying about doing it, and singers I know are doing garden, what's stopping us going, charging a tenner a head or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
So that was my idea, but it never took off. But I think that may be something that we might have to do, but you just don't know.
Yeah, there's again just the grey area, and then the sort of erratic regulations and stuff like that. I mean, they even came out today that the pubs are supposed like dry. Was it a dry pub or a wet pub that just does drink? What's that called? Is that wet or dry? Wet. I know, but they were supposed to open on the 1st, and I think that's been pushed back yet again as of today. So I
just don't get how you can have a drink as long as you have a bacon bap.
Yeah,
you know what I mean. Have a bacon bap, you can have a pint, but you just can't come in for a pint.
Yeah, because I'm trying to figure out. They say obviously you have to eat.
COVID-19 mustn't like food.
Yeah, but I'm trying to figure out.
Your man's having a burger, fuck that.
Yeah, what constitutes food though? I mean, like if you does a bag of crisps count, or like a tube of Pringles? Like what actually counts as food? Do you know what I mean?
I think it's something that actually comes from a kitchen.
Right, so it has to be prepared.
Yeah, I think that's grey area. Isn't it?
Was there many places in the West that actually even closed during the whole COVID thing? From what you said,
they all closed. Funny enough, which I was really surprised at.
Yeah, I think that's how you know it's serious then, because places Strabane closed as well, and they're still closed. And I was like, and bear in mind they can't afford to stay closed.
Yeah,
even now. So the fact that they still are does
kind
of show.
I found it strange in Cork at the weekend because how strict they actually were. Because I didn't think it was that strict down there, but when I got down there, I realized it really is implemented. But like everything closed up here, apart from like I know one place in Ardoyne opened, and how they got past the food element was they started selling Rustler burgers.
Class.
Here, love, I'm gonna book you in, so I'm down the Shamrock near you, 2 Rustler burgers, and they go all out and get a fucking dip dab, after.
Gives a dime bar.
Give us 2 Rustler burgers, 4 E's, and a bag of Coke.
It's going to be an interesting couple of months anyway, man. I think I'll leave it there because I've got a few bits to do, man. If that's cool. Well, thank you very much for coming 100%.
On. Yes, mate. Good to see you.
Lovely to see you as well. We'll do we'll do a fake goodbye just for the sake of the podcast, but we'll stay on. So, cheers for coming on. Appreciate it.
Oh, no problem, mate. All the best.
You too, man. Take it easy.
All the best.